For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On the afternoon of June 8, 1992, 5-year-old Tyler Brooks vanished without a trace from Riverside Park Playground in the small town of Millbrook, Connecticut. The kindergartner had been playing on the swings with his older sister when he disappeared during what should have been a routine visit to their neighborhood park. Despite an extensive investigation involving local police, state authorities, the FBI, and hundreds of volunteers, no trace of Tyler was ever found. The case became one of Connecticut's most heartbreaking missing child mysteries, leaving his family devastated and a close-knit community forever changed by the loss of one of their youngest members. For 3 years, Tyler's disappearance remained unsolved, gradually fading from daily headlines but never from the minds of those who refused to give up hope that the little boy with the bright smile might someday come home. Then, in August 1995, a routine dog walk along the Millbrook River would lead to a discovery that would finally provide answers to questions that had haunted the town for years. Eleanor Martinez was walking her golden retriever Charlie along the riverbank when the dog began digging frantically near an old fallen tree. Hidden beneath years of accumulated mud and debris, Charlie had found a small red sneaker that would prove to be the first piece of evidence in Tyler Brooks' case since the day he disappeared. This is the complete investigation into Tyler Brooks' disappearance, from the sunny playground where he vanished to the shocking revelation that would emerge from the banks of the Millbrook River 3 years later. Chapter 1: A Perfect Day at the Park. June 8, 1992 was a beautiful Monday afternoon in Millbrook, Connecticut, with clear skies and temperatures in the mid-70s, perfect weather for children to play outside after a long day at school. For the Brooks family, it seemed like an ideal opportunity for 5-year-old Tyler Brooks and his 8-year-old sister Emma to spend some time at their favorite playground. Tyler Brooks was a bright, energetic kindergartner who had just completed his first year at Millbrook Elementary School. Teachers and family friends described him as curious and friendly, always eager to explore and make new friends. His boundless energy and infectious laugh made him a favorite among both children and adults in their small community. The Brooks family had lived in Millbrook for Tyler's entire life, having moved to the quiet Connecticut town when his mother, Karen Brooks, took a position as a librarian at the local public library. Tyler's father, Michael Brooks, worked as an accountant for a firm in nearby Hartford, commuting daily to provide for his family. Riverside Park was located just 4 blocks from the Brooks family home on Oak Street, making it a popular destination for neighborhood children and their parents. The park featured modern playground equipment, including swings, slides, and climbing structures, all situated in a well-maintained area surrounded by mature oak and maple trees. On June 8, Karen Brooks had picked up Tyler and Emma from the after-school program at Millbrook Elementary and decided to take them to the playground before dinner. The children had been excited about the prospect of playing outside, and Karen looked forward to watching them enjoy the beautiful afternoon. The family arrived at Riverside Park at approximately 3:45 p.m., joining several other parents and children who were taking advantage of the perfect weather. Karen settled onto a bench about 30 feet from the playground equipment, where she could easily watch both Tyler and Emma while they played. Tyler immediately gravitated toward the swings, which had always been his favorite playground activity. Emma, being older and more adventurous, headed for the climbing structure, where she could challenge herself with more complex physical activities. For the first hour of their visit, Tyler and Emma played happily while Karen watched from her bench and occasionally chatted with other parents. The playground was busy but not overcrowded, with approximately 8 to 10 children of various ages enjoying the equipment. At around 4:30 p.m., Tyler had been swinging contentedly for several minutes when he announced to his sister that he wanted to try the climbing structure. Emma, who had been playing with 2 other girls near the slides, told Tyler she would help him navigate the more challenging equipment. However, when Emma finished her conversation with her new friends and turned to look for Tyler, she couldn't see him anywhere on the playground. Initially, she assumed he had simply moved to a different piece of equipment or had gone to get a drink of water from the fountain near the park's entrance. Emma spent several minutes looking around the playground area before becoming concerned enough to approach her mother. At 4:45 p.m., Emma told Karen that she couldn't find Tyler anywhere and asked if he had come to sit with her on the bench. Karen immediately stood up and began scanning the playground area, calling Tyler's name and checking behind and under all the equipment where a 5-year-old might hide or become stuck. Her initial assumption was that Tyler had simply wandered to a part of the park that wasn't immediately visible from her bench. The search quickly expanded to include the entire park area, with Karen and Emma checking the restroom facilities, the parking area, and the walking paths that surrounded the playground. Several other parents joined the search, calling Tyler's name and checking areas where a small child might have wandered. By 5 p.m., Tyler had been missing for approximately 15 minutes, and Karen's concern was escalating to panic. She had covered every area of the park multiple times and had asked every person present if they had seen a 5-year-old boy in a red t-shirt and blue shorts. The search revealed that no one at the park could remember seeing Tyler after about 4:30 p.m., when he had been on the swings. Several people had noticed him earlier in the afternoon, but no one could provide information about where he had gone or when he had left the playground area. At 5:10 p.m., Karen made the decision to call the Millbrook Police Department. The call was received by Officer Jennifer Walsh, who immediately recognized the urgency of a missing child case and dispatched units to Riverside Park. Officer Walsh arrived at the park at 5:20 p.m. and began taking statements from Karen Brooks and the other parents who had been present during Tyler's disappearance. The initial investigation revealed that Tyler had vanished during a brief period when multiple people thought someone else was watching him. The officer immediately called for additional units and began organizing a systematic search of the area surrounding Riverside Park. The search would expand throughout the evening to include every location within walking distance where a 5-year-old child might have wandered or been taken. By 6 p.m. on June 8, Tyler Brooks had been missing for over an hour, and investigators had found no evidence to explain his disappearance from the busy playground. The search for the little boy with the bright smile was about to become one of Millbrook's most intensive missing child investigations. The playground that had been filled with laughter and children's voices just hours earlier had become the center of a desperate search for a 5-year-old who had simply vanished during what should have been a perfect afternoon of play. Chapter 2. The Search Begins. The search for Tyler Brooks intensified dramatically on the evening of June 8, 1992, as the Millbrook Police Department recognized that a missing 5-year-old required immediate and extensive resources to maximize the chances of finding him safely. Detective Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell was called in to lead the investigation. With 12 years of experience in missing person cases, Mitchell understood that the first few hours would be critical in determining Tyler's fate, especially given his young age and the circumstances of his disappearance. The investigation began with detailed interviews of everyone who had been at Riverside Park during the afternoon. Mitchell and her team spoke with parents, children, joggers, and anyone else who might have seen Tyler or noticed anything unusual around the time of his disappearance. The interviews revealed that Tyler had been playing normally and happily throughout the afternoon, showing no signs of distress or unusual behavior. Several witnesses confirmed seeing him on the swings around 4:30 p.m., but no one could recall seeing him after that time. One potentially significant observation came from Mrs. Dorothy Chen, who had been at the park with her 2 children. Mrs. Chen reported seeing a man she didn't recognize watching the playground from a car parked on the street adjacent to the park around 4:15 p.m. However, Mrs. Chen couldn't provide a detailed description of the man or the vehicle, and she wasn't certain whether the person had still been there at the time Tyler disappeared. The lead was noted but proved difficult to investigate without more specific information. The physical search began with a systematic examination of Riverside Park and the immediate surrounding area. Officers checked every possible location where a 5-year-old might wander, hide, or become trapped, including storm drains, thick vegetation, and any structures that could conceal a small child. The Connecticut State Police were contacted and provided additional resources, including search dogs trained to track missing persons. The dogs were given items of Tyler's clothing to establish his scent, then taken to various locations around the park to attempt to pick up his trail. The search dogs picked up Tyler's scent around the playground equipment and followed it toward the edge of the park, but the trail seemed to end abruptly near the parking area. This suggested that Tyler might have gotten into a vehicle, either voluntarily or against his will. The FBI joined the investigation on June 9, bringing federal resources and expertise in child abduction cases. Special Agent Robert Kim was assigned to work with local investigators and coordinate with national databases of missing children and suspected predators. Agent Kim's first priority was to investigate the possibility that Tyler had been abducted by someone who had been specifically targeting children at the playground. The park's location and lack of security cameras made it an attractive location for someone with malicious intent. The investigation expanded to include background checks on all registered sex offenders within a 50-mile radius of Millbrook. However, most of these individuals had verifiable alibis for June 8, and none showed obvious connections to Tyler's disappearance. The search area gradually expanded to include all of Millbrook and surrounding communities. Volunteers from throughout Connecticut joined the effort, systematically checking wooded areas, abandoned buildings, construction sites, and any location where a child might be hidden or held. The case received extensive media coverage throughout Connecticut and neighboring states, with Tyler's photograph appearing on television news programs and in newspapers. The story of a 5-year-old disappearing from a playground captured public attention and generated numerous tips. However, most of the tips proved to be false leads or cases of mistaken identity. Several people reported seeing young boys who resembled Tyler in various locations, but investigation revealed that none of these sightings involved Tyler himself. One tip that seemed particularly promising came from a convenience store clerk who reported seeing a man with a young boy matching Tyler's description at a gas station about 10 miles from Millbrook on the evening of June 8. However, security footage from the store was too unclear to make a positive identification. As June 1992 turned into July, Tyler had been missing for nearly a month without any confirmed sightings or physical evidence. The investigation had involved hundreds of law enforcement officers and volunteers but had produced no concrete leads about his whereabouts. The case was particularly challenging because Tyler was too young to have wandered far on his own, yet there was no clear evidence of abduction. The brief window during which he had disappeared, approximately 15 minutes, suggested that whoever had taken him had acted quickly and efficiently. Detective Mitchell continued to focus on the theory that Tyler had been abducted by someone who was familiar with the park and its surroundings. However, identifying such a person proved extremely difficult given the number of people who used the park regularly. The investigation also examined the possibility that Tyler had wandered away from the playground and had met with an accident, perhaps falling into water or becoming trapped somewhere. However, extensive searches of all waterways and potential hazards in the area had produced no evidence. As the summer of 1992 progressed, the active search for Tyler was gradually scaled back, though the case remained open and active. The transition from intensive daily searching to ongoing investigation was devastating for the Brooks family. Karen and Michael Brooks refused to give up hope that their son would be found alive. They continued their own search efforts, distributed flyers throughout New England, and worked with missing children organizations to keep Tyler's case in the public consciousness. The playground at Riverside Park was never quite the same after Tyler's disappearance. While children continued to play there, parents became more vigilant, and the carefree atmosphere that had once characterized the location was forever changed by the memory of the little boy who had vanished on a perfect June afternoon. Tyler's case would remain one of Connecticut's most perplexing missing child mysteries for years to come, joining the ranks of cases that seemed destined to remain forever unsolved. However, the answers to Tyler's fate were actually much closer than anyone realized, waiting to be discovered along the banks of the Millbrook River. Chapter 3: Years of Uncertainty. The years following Tyler Brooks' disappearance were marked by relentless efforts from his family and periodic reviews by law enforcement, but the case gradually took on the characteristics of an unsolved mystery that seemed to defy explanation. Karen and Michael Brooks refused to accept that their son had simply vanished without a trace. They maintained regular contact with Detective Mitchell and other investigators, providing them with any new information or potential leads that came to their attention. The Brooks family also hired private investigator Thomas Walsh in 1993 to continue the search when it became clear that the official investigation had exhausted its immediate leads. Walsh brought fresh perspective to the case and had extensive contacts throughout the law enforcement community. Walsh's investigation focused on the theory that Tyler had been abducted by someone who was familiar with the Riverside Park area and the routines of local families. He spent months interviewing residents near the park and examining the backgrounds of anyone who might have had opportunity and motive. Throughout 1993 and 1994, the Brooks family organized search expeditions and awareness campaigns, bringing volunteers to areas that might not have been thoroughly searched during the original investigation. They distributed thousands of flyers and maintained a reward fund for information about Tyler. The case was featured on several television programs, including America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries, generating hundreds of tips from viewers across the country. However, most of these leads proved to be false sightings or cases of mistaken identity when investigated by law enforcement. One tip that seemed particularly credible came from a woman in Massachusetts who reported seeing a boy matching Tyler's description with a man at a shopping center in Springfield. The witness provided specific details about the child's appearance and behavior that seemed consistent with Tyler's characteristics. Investigators traveled to Massachusetts to follow up on this lead, interviewing the witness and reviewing security footage from the shopping center. However, the footage was too unclear to make a positive identification, and the lead ultimately proved to be another dead end. The false leads were emotionally exhausting for the Brooks family, who experienced renewed hope with each tip followed by crushing disappointment when it didn't provide answers. The uncertainty about Tyler's fate made it impossible to properly grieve or move forward with their lives. Detective Mitchell continued to review Tyler's case file regularly, looking for connections to similar missing children cases or new investigative techniques that might be applicable. She maintained contact with the FBI and participated in task forces focused on missing children throughout New England. In 1995, 3 years after Tyler's disappearance, Detective Mitchell was preparing for retirement but remained committed to finding answers about Tyler's fate before leaving the force. She decided to conduct a final comprehensive review of the case, including re-examination of all physical evidence and potential search areas. One aspect of the case that had always troubled Detective Mitchell was the proximity of the Millbrook River to Riverside Park. The river ran approximately half a mile south of the playground, through a wooded area that connected to the park via several walking trails. During the original investigation, the river had been searched by dive teams and volunteers, but the focus had been on areas immediately adjacent to the park. Detective Mitchell wondered if Tyler might have wandered farther along the river than anyone had initially considered. The Millbrook River was a meandering waterway that flowed through several Connecticut towns before eventually joining the Connecticut River. In 1992, the section near Riverside Park had been relatively shallow and slow-moving, but heavy rains could cause rapid changes in water levels and current. Detective Mitchell's review of weather records from June 1992 revealed that there had been significant rainfall in the days following Tyler's disappearance, which could have affected any evidence that might have been along the riverbank or in the water itself. In August 1995, Detective Mitchell organized a new search effort focused specifically on areas along the Millbrook River that had not been thoroughly examined during the original investigation. The search included sections of the river that were several miles from Riverside Park but were accessible via walking trails. The river search was conducted by volunteers and professional search teams, but it was also supported by local residents who regularly walked along the riverbank with their dogs. Detective Mitchell asked these regular river users to be particularly alert for anything unusual that might be related to Tyler's case. One of these regular dog walkers was Eleanor Martinez, a 58-year-old retired teacher who lived near the river and walked her golden retriever Charlie along the riverbank every morning and evening. Martinez had been following Tyler's case closely and had participated in several volunteer search efforts over the years. On the morning of August 22, 1995, Martinez was walking Charlie along a section of the river about 2 miles south of Riverside Park when the dog began exhibiting unusual behavior. Charlie started digging frantically near the base of a large fallen tree that had been in the water for several years. Martinez initially tried to call Charlie away from the area, assuming the dog had found something unpleasant like a dead fish or animal remains. However, Charlie's persistent digging and agitated behavior was unlike anything Martinez had seen before from her normally calm dog. When Martinez approached the area where Charlie was digging, she noticed something that made her heart race. Partially buried in the mud and debris at the base of the fallen tree was what appeared to be a small red sneaker, the type that a young child might wear. Martinez immediately recognized the potential significance of the discovery and carefully examined the shoe without disturbing it further. The sneaker was small, appeared to be designed for a child around 5 or 6 years old, and was red with white trim, a description that matched what Tyler had been wearing when he disappeared. Martinez immediately contacted the Millbrook Police Department and reported her discovery. Within hours, Detective Mitchell and a team of forensic specialists had arrived at the riverbank to examine the shoe and conduct a thorough search of the surrounding area. The discovery of the child's shoe along the Millbrook River would prove to be the breakthrough that investigators had been seeking for over 3 years. However, it would also raise new and troubling questions about what had happened to Tyler Brooks during those crucial minutes when he had vanished from the playground. Chapter 4: The Discovery. August 22, 1995 was a humid summer morning when Eleanor Martinez made the discovery that would finally break open the Tyler Brooks case. Martinez had been walking her golden retriever Charlie along their usual route beside the Millbrook River when the dog's behavior suddenly changed in a way she had never experienced before. Charlie, normally a calm and obedient dog, began digging frantically at the base of a large oak tree that had fallen into the river several years earlier. The tree had created a natural dam of sorts, collecting debris and sediment over time, but Martinez had walked past it hundreds of times without Charlie showing any interest. On this particular morning, Charlie's digging was intense and focused, as if he had detected something specific beneath the accumulated mud and organic matter. Martinez tried repeatedly to call the dog away, but Charlie continued to dig with unusual determination. When Martinez approached to physically restrain Charlie, she noticed something that made her stop immediately. Partially exposed by the dog's digging was what appeared to be a small piece of red fabric or material that looked distinctly artificial among the natural debris. Martinez carefully brushed away some of the loose mud and leaves, revealing what was unmistakably a child's sneaker. The shoe was small, red with white accents, and appeared to be a brand and style that would have been popular for young children in the early 1990s. The discovery immediately brought Tyler Brooks to Martinez's mind. She had been following his case closely for 3 years and remembered that he had been wearing red sneakers when he disappeared from Riverside Park. The size and style of the shoe seemed consistent with what a 5-year-old would wear. Martinez understood the importance of preserving potential evidence and immediately stopped her examination of the area. She secured Charlie on his leash and used her cell phone to call the Millbrook Police Department, reporting the discovery of what appeared to be a child's shoe along the riverbank. The call was received by dispatcher Linda Rodriguez, who immediately recognized the potential significance of the discovery and contacted Detective Mitchell directly. Within 30 minutes, Detective Mitchell had arrived at the riverbank with a team of forensic technicians and evidence specialists. The location where the shoe had been found was approximately 2 miles south of Riverside Park, along a section of the river that was accessible via walking trails but was not heavily trafficked by casual visitors. The area was partially concealed by vegetation and would have been easily overlooked during broad searches. Detective Mitchell immediately secured the area as a crime scene and began a systematic examination of the location. The fallen tree and surrounding area were carefully photographed and mapped before any evidence was collected or the scene was disturbed. The forensic team carefully excavated the area around where the shoe had been found, looking for any additional evidence that might be buried in the sediment and debris. The work was slow and methodical, as they needed to preserve any potential evidence while thoroughly examining the site. As the excavation progressed, the team made additional discoveries that confirmed the significance of Martinez's find. Buried deeper in the sediment, they found the matching shoe to the red sneaker, along with other items of children's clothing that appeared to have been in the water for an extended period. Most significantly, the team discovered human remains that were clearly those of a young child. The remains were found approximately 3 feet beneath the surface of the sediment, suggesting that they had been buried there for a considerable time and had been covered by natural accumulation of debris. The discovery of the remains immediately answered the most pressing question about Tyler Brooks' fate. He had died shortly after his disappearance and had been in the river for 3 years. However, it also raised new questions about how he had ended up in this location and what had caused his death. The forensic examination of the scene revealed that the remains and clothing had been deliberately buried beneath the fallen tree, rather than being deposited there by natural water flow. The positioning and depth of the burial suggested that someone had specifically chosen this location to conceal evidence. Detective Mitchell immediately contacted the Connecticut State Police and the FBI to report the discovery and request additional forensic resources. The site was expanded to include the entire area around the fallen tree, and a comprehensive search of the riverbank was organized. The remains were carefully removed and transported to the state medical examiner's office for detailed analysis and positive identification. While the size and age of the remains were consistent with Tyler Brooks, definitive identification would require forensic examination and comparison with medical records. The clothing found with the remains was sent to the FBI Forensic Laboratory for analysis. The items included a red t-shirt and blue shorts that matched the description of what Tyler had been wearing when he disappeared, providing strong circumstantial evidence that the remains belonged to him. The discovery also prompted a re-examination of the original investigation and the search efforts that had been conducted in 1992. Detective Mitchell began analyzing why the remains had not been found during the initial searches and what factors had led to this location being overlooked. The investigation revealed that the area where Tyler's remains were found had been searched briefly during the original effort, but the focus had been on the water surface and immediate shoreline rather than areas where evidence might be buried beneath accumulated debris. The fallen tree had been in place since before Tyler's disappearance, creating a natural collection point for debris that would have gradually covered anything placed beneath it. The location would have been ideal for someone who wanted to ensure that evidence remained hidden for an extended period. The discovery of Tyler's remains along the Millbrook River finally provided answers about his fate, but it also transformed the investigation from a missing person case into a homicide investigation. Someone had deliberately buried Tyler's body in this remote location, and that person was still unknown to investigators. Chapter 5. The Truth Revealed. The forensic examination of the remains found along the Millbrook River confirmed what investigators had suspected. The body was indeed that of Tyler Brooks, and his death had been a homicide rather than an accident. The discovery marked the beginning of a new phase of investigation focused on identifying who had killed the 5-year-old and hidden his body for 3 years. Dr. Patricia Williams, the Connecticut State Medical Examiner, conducted a thorough examination of Tyler's remains and was able to determine several crucial facts about his death. Despite the extended time the body had been buried, the conditions along the riverbank had preserved enough evidence to provide important clues. The examination revealed that Tyler had died from blunt force trauma to the head, consistent with being struck by a heavy object or having his head struck against a hard surface. The injury pattern suggested that Tyler had been killed by someone much larger and stronger than himself. The forensic analysis also indicated that Tyler had died within hours of his disappearance from Riverside Park, ruling out the possibility that he had been held captive for any extended period. This suggested that his abduction and murder had been a spontaneous crime rather than a carefully planned kidnapping. The clothing found with Tyler's remains was subjected to detailed forensic analysis, including testing for DNA evidence, fibers, and any other trace materials that might provide clues about his killer. While much of the evidence had been degraded by 3 years in the water, some useful information was recovered. The investigation immediately focused on how Tyler had been transported from Riverside Park to the burial site along the Millbrook River. The distance of approximately 2 miles and the remote location of the burial site suggested that the killer had used a vehicle and was familiar with the local area. Detective Mitchell organized a comprehensive review of everyone who had been investigated during the original missing person case, looking for anyone who might have had access to vehicles and knowledge of the river area. The investigation also expanded to include new suspects who might not have been considered in 1992. One name that emerged from this expanded investigation was that of Robert Chen, a 34-year-old local handyman who had been working in the Riverside Park area during the summer of 1992. Chen had been briefly questioned during the original investigation but had not been considered a serious suspect. However, the re-examination of Chen's background revealed several concerning factors that had been overlooked in 1992. Chen had a history of minor criminal offenses, including arrests for public intoxication and disorderly conduct, though he had no record of crimes against children. More significantly, investigators discovered that Chen had been fired from a maintenance job at a local school district in 1991 due to complaints about his inappropriate interest in young children. While no criminal charges had been filed, the incident had raised concerns about his behavior around minors. When investigators attempted to locate Chen for questioning about Tyler's case, they discovered that he had left Connecticut shortly after Tyler's body was found in August 1995. Chen had told acquaintances that he was moving to Florida for work, but he had not maintained contact with anyone in Millbrook. The investigation revealed that Chen had owned a pickup truck in 1992 and had been familiar with the Millbrook River area through his work and recreational activities. He had also been in the vicinity of Riverside Park on June 8, 1992, working on a landscaping project at a house approximately 2 blocks from the playground. When investigators finally located Chen in Tampa, Florida, in October 1995, they found him working under an assumed name at a construction company. His behavior when approached by detectives was nervous and evasive, and he initially denied any knowledge of Tyler Brooks or his disappearance. However, when confronted with evidence placing him in the area at the time of Tyler's disappearance and questioned about his sudden departure from Connecticut, Chen's story began to change. He eventually admitted that he had been at Riverside Park on June 8, 1992, but claimed he had only been there briefly. Chen's final confession came after several hours of questioning and was prompted by forensic evidence that linked him to Tyler's death. Fibers found on Tyler's clothing matched material from Chen's work clothes, and soil samples from Chen's truck matched the composition of dirt at the burial site. According to Chen's confession, he had been watching children at Riverside Park while taking a break from his landscaping work. He had noticed Tyler playing alone near the edge of the playground and had approached the boy with the intention of luring him away. Chen claimed that he had told Tyler he had lost his dog and asked the boy to help him look for it in the woods near the park. Tyler, being a trusting 5-year-old, had agreed to help and had followed Chen away from the playground area. However, when Tyler had become frightened and tried to return to the playground, Chen had prevented him from leaving. In the ensuing struggle, Chen had struck Tyler, causing the fatal head injury. Panicked by what he had done, Chen had put Tyler's body in his truck and driven to the river. Chen had chosen the burial site along the Millbrook River because he was familiar with the area and knew that the fallen tree would provide concealment. He had buried Tyler's body beneath the tree and had covered it with debris, believing it would never be found. The confession provided closure for Tyler's family, though it could never heal the pain of losing their son. Karen and Michael Brooks expressed relief that Tyler's killer had finally been identified and would face justice for his crimes. Robert Chen was charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping in Tyler's death. He pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring that he would never again pose a threat to children. The case had a profound impact on the Millbrook community, which had spent 3 years wondering what had happened to Tyler. The revelation that he had been killed by someone who had been living among them while participating in search efforts was particularly disturbing. The investigation also led to improved safety measures at Riverside Park and other public areas where children played. New security cameras were installed, and parents became more vigilant about supervising their children during playground visits. Eleanor Martinez, whose dog Charlie had discovered Tyler's shoe, was recognized for her role in solving the case. Her daily walks along the river and her decision to report the discovery had been crucial to finally bringing Tyler home and identifying his killer. The Brooks family established a memorial fund in Tyler's name that provided playground safety equipment for schools and parks throughout Connecticut. The fund ensured that Tyler's memory would live on through efforts to protect other children from similar tragedies. Final words. The resolution of Tyler Brooks' case in 1995 brought closure to one of Connecticut's most heartbreaking missing child investigations. The discovery of his remains along the Millbrook River had finally provided answers to questions that had haunted his family and community for 3 years. Tyler's story led to significant improvements in playground safety and missing child protocols throughout Connecticut and beyond. The case demonstrated the importance of maintaining vigilance in public spaces and the value of community involvement in keeping children safe. The Brooks family's advocacy work following the resolution of Tyler's case helped improve missing person investigation techniques and child safety education programs. They worked tirelessly to ensure that other families would not experience the uncertainty and suffering that had defined their lives for years. Eleanor Martinez continued her daily walks along the Millbrook River, always remembering the discovery that had solved Tyler's case. Her golden retriever Charlie had played a crucial role in finding evidence that human searchers had missed, demonstrating the value of search dogs and animal assistance in investigations. The Riverside Park Playground was renovated and renamed the Tyler Brooks Memorial Playground, featuring new safety equipment and improved sightlines for supervising adults. The memorial honored Tyler's memory while serving as a reminder of the importance of protecting children in public spaces. Today, Tyler Brooks' legacy lives on through the safety improvements and investigative enhancements that resulted from his case. His story serves as a reminder that persistence in searching for missing children can eventually yield results, even when years have passed without progress. The small red sneaker that had been discovered along the riverbank had preserved crucial evidence for 3 years, waiting for the right combination of circumstances to bring it to light. Tyler's case demonstrated that answers can sometimes be found in the most unexpected places by the most unlikely discoverers. Robert Chen's conviction brought justice for Tyler while ensuring that a dangerous predator could never again harm children. The case showed how individuals with criminal tendencies could hide in plain sight within communities, emphasizing the importance of thorough background checks and community awareness. The Millbrook River, which had concealed Tyler's fate for 3 years, had finally given up its secrets through the persistent efforts of investigators and the keen senses of a golden retriever who refused to ignore what he had found beneath a fallen tree.